The center of gravity of a part is identified from the origin of the grid system in Inventor or other 3D solid modeling packages. Remember that the origin in a three-dimensional Cartesian coordinate system is the point 0, 0, 0. When you're in sketch mode, you can see the origin icon. It's right here. Now I have created a profile sketch and I have changed the perspective view here so that I'm looking at it from the top front left corner. So before we get started, create a profile of your retaining wall that we can then move. Note that the dimensions on this retaining wall are not the same as the dimensions you'll need for activity 5.7. Alright, let's walk through the steps for one method you can use to move your part profile to the origin. Before we get started, we need to make sure that we have axes and the coordinate system indicator visible. To do that, choose the Tools tab, Application Options, and then in the Sketch tab, be sure that your axes and coordinate system indicator are checked on, and then hit OK. In order to move the sketch, we'll use a coincident constraint. We'll move the tipping point, which remember is going to be the bottom corner of the footing of the retaining wall, to the origin. That way, the coordinates shown for the center of gravity and eye properties will be measured from that tipping point. So now that you've created your sketch, we're going to place a point at the origin so that we can move our sketch to that point. To do that, go to the Sketch tab. In the Create panel, select Point. Now before we place a point, we want to make sure we're placing the correct type of point. So move over to the Format panel and be sure that the point icon here is not shaded. If it's shaded, you'll be placing a center point. We want to place a regular point, so make sure that that is not shaded. Okay, then come back to Create, make sure your point tool is shaded, and then come down here and hover over the origin until you get X0, Y0, and click your point in place. Now, to make sure that point doesn't move away from the origin, we want to lock it. So we're going to use a lock constraint. To do that, come up to the Constraint panel, choose the Lock tool, and then select the point. That will lock that point at the origin so it will not move. Now, we want to move the profile so that this bottom corner, this tipping point, coincides with the origin. Again, we're going to use a coincident constraint. So in the Constraint panel, choose Coincident Constraint, and then choose the origin, the point you placed at the origin, in that bottom corner. Your profile sketch should then jump to the origin. At this point, if your sketch and dimensions are correct, you can finish your sketch. And now, let's make sure that we place our tipping point, that point at the origin, in the center of the length of the wall. When you extrude, so I'm going to go to 3D Model, Extrude. I'm going to select this Symmetric Extrusion Extents and then type in my distance here. So now the point at the origin is this point right here at the center of the length of the wall at the tipping edge. Hit OK. Now when I look at my eye properties, the coordinates of my center of gravity are measured from that tipping edge.